Thanos. A name almost everyone, comic book fan or not, knows very well. But how did the Mad Titan go from being known almost exclusively as only hardcore Marvel fans to becoming potentially the best comic book movie villain of all time? Welcome back to Heroescope. It all started way back in 1973, when Thanos was first created by Jim Starlin in an issue of Iron Man comics. He was slightly inspired by DC's Darkseid, but decided to make Thanos even more ruthless. Essentially, Thanos is a part of the advanced race called the Eternals, who, due to a genetic mutation, ended up with a monstrous appearance and was shunned by his own people, even earning the nickname the Mad Titan. In the beginning, he looked pretty much the same as he does now, but lacked the resolve and philosophical and strategic aspect he later had. The Thanos that came about around 1991 with the Infinity Gauntlet saga was much closer to the Thanos we all know and love, and this is where he gained this more strategic approach, as well as his immense love for Lady Death, which is often the motivation behind his decisions in the comics. However, his road to the big screen was slow and steady. Marvel knew that Thanos wasn't a widely known character, so they decided to take their time setting him up, so that he could garner hype slowly before finally getting his time to shine. When Joss Whedon was hired to direct the first Avengers movie in 2012, he was sure that he wanted the big bad of the movie to be Loki, and for the whole plot to be centered around him and his attack on New York. However, he also got the idea that Loki could just be a pawn for someone much larger, and so he thought it would be pretty cool to bring Thanos in the mix. Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios agreed, and just like that, under a complete veil of secrecy, a cameo post-credit scene was filmed. It was so secret that almost none of the cast even knew about the scene being filmed. In the scene, Thanos didn't even have any lines, and just grinned at the camera. He wasn't even played by Josh Brolin yet. Instead, it was a stuntman and actor called Damien Poitier, portraying Thanos in this brief scene. When the movie hit theaters, most of the people had no idea who this was, thinking that it could perhaps be Red Skull, but the hardcore Marvel fans knew exactly who it was, helped by the Court of Deathline, which slightly hinted at Thanos' relationship with Lady Death. Thanos' next appearance was much more impactful, and he played a much larger role, introducing himself to the general population, and setting the stage for the fan-favorite villain that he would end up becoming. He appeared for a brief scene in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he scolded Ronan, and showed that he was the one puppeteering him to find the Infinity Stones, much like he was doing with Loki before him. By this time, Josh Brolin had already taken up the role of Thanos, and his deep, menacing voice combined with the improved CGI was already making Thanos feel like quite a threat. But the first time fans would start feeling fear for their favorite Avengers once again came from a post-credit scene in an Avengers movie. In 2014, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios announced their plans for two Avengers movies in the future, called Infinity War Part 1 and 2, which, for the more knowledgeable Marvel fans, were undeniable proof that Thanos was coming. However, the general population also found this out very soon, when the MCU finally made a direct sequel to the first Avengers movie the following year, naming it Avengers Age of Ultron. Much like the name would suggest, the villain chosen to be the big bad in this movie is Ultron, a menacing AI robot, accidentally created by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. After fighting him the entire movie and barely defeating him in the post-credit scene, we learned that Ultron, as menacing as he was just another pawn in the massive chess game Thanos seemed to have been playing with the Avengers the whole time. In the scene itself, Thanos walks into a well-lit chamber and grabs his well-known Infinity Gauntlet, and just says,
"I'll do it myself."
This small scene was enough to strike fear into the hearts of Marvel fans, and it showed them that the Avengers were close to facing a threat much greater than anything they had ever faced before. Just like that, immense hype was building to see what the past years of brick by brick built up would amount to. And then, it all reached a new peak when the first trailer for Infinity War was released. In November of 2017, just half a year before the release of Infinity War, the first trailer dropped, and even the trailer was hyping Thanos up, having him say menacing quotes as a voiceover before he ever appears in the trailer. The people were, rightfully so, super excited to see the Avengers fight the Mad Titan, yet equally scared, given the fact that the Avengers had been completely dismantled during the events of Captain America Civil War, knowing that this would only make the fight that much harder. The movie finally released in April of 2018, and both the movie and Thanos himself completely exceeded everyone's expectations, which are already on a super high level. Instead of giving the people a relatively generic villain with basic evil motivations like regular superhero movies sometimes tend to do, the MCU decided to practically focus the Infinity War movie on Thanos and thoroughly make us, the audience, understand exactly where he was coming from and what his motivation for destroying the universe was. And an almost unprecedented thing happened. People started agreeing with him. Thanos' basic plan was to wipe out half of the universe with all of the Infinity Stones. However, instead of going down the basic villain route and having him do this for the sake of evil, or even going down the comic book route where Thanos wants to do this to impress Lady Death, his biggest obsession, the MCU decided to do something else entirely. They gave Thanos a reasonable and almost altruistic reason for committing an act as horrific as this. Having seen what kind of horrors, overpopulation, and not enough resources created on this planet of Titan, Thanos realized that for one half of the universe to live, the other would have to be destroyed, and made him this philosophical thinker, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Thinking that he would bring peace to the universe by decimating one half of it. In the very first scene of the movie, Thanos proved why he was a force to be reckoned with. Unlike almost all the other MCU movies, Infinity War cut straight to the carnage Thanos and his servants caused on Thor's ship, and immediately, the audience understands exactly who he is. He starts giving speeches, and you can immediately tell that this is not a bloodthirsty evil villain just for the sake of being evil, but is much more than that. On top of that, without breaking a sweat, he defeats arguably the two most powerful Avengers, Thor and Hulk, proving that he is not only intelligent and well-spoken, but an absolute powerhouse too. Perhaps the best thing Infinity War did is make Thanos the protagonist. Let me explain. Instead of following the Avengers and having Thanos react to their actions, the movie mostly follows Thanos completing his mission of collecting all of the Infinity Stones, and shows the Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers reacting to Thanos' actions. What makes Thanos even more interesting is the fact that he does not hate the Avengers at all. He even has respect for those who challenge him, such as Iron Man and Doctor Strange. He simply considers them obstacles in the way of his mission, and he never goes out of his way to unalive anyone if he doesn't consider it absolutely necessary. One of the many reasons Thanos is considered a fan favorite and one of the best villains of all time is that he is willing to sacrifice everything to do what he believes is right, and what will, in his eyes, save the universe. He proves this when he throws Gamora off of the cliff, whom he, despite everything, loves very much, and again proves it when he almost gets unalived by Thor at the end of the movie. What makes him so scary is that he is acting completely selflessly. He doesn't seek personal gain, but seeks something that he considers will be for the greater good. And, to top it all off, Infinity War does something no superhero movie dared to do up until that point. It lets Thanos win. Thanos destroys the Avengers almost completely on his own, and goes to his little planet to rest, happy and grateful that he, in his own eyes, managed to save the universe. Just like that, by the time half of the universe was disappearing into dust particles, people's jaws were dropped in the theaters, completely in awe of the greatness of the villain and movie they just witnessed. All that the people could do was wait another year to see how the story would unfold, with the ominous words, "Thanos will return," written after the credits. And he returned indeed. The next year, Avengers Endgame took the world by storm, breaking all box office records. And with the movie, Thanos was back, although not quite the same. The Infinity War Thanos, the one loved by so many, ends up being humiliated by the Avengers at the beginning of the movie, after having retired on a peaceful planet having destroyed the Infinity Stones. Thor is the one that deals the final blow, much like Thanos himself had told him during their previous battle, by going for the head. The Thanos the Avengers face later in the movie is a Thanos from 2014, who has realized the mistakes of his predecessor and decided to destroy the entire universe, instead of only half of it. Endgame Thanos was a completely different beast. He was a bloodlusted tyrant who went to the future to face the Avengers, get the Infinity Stone, and destroy the entire universe, creating a new one, after having witnessed his own demise through Nebula's memories. Here, he falls much more into the typical crazy villain, and although he is still super cool, Infinity War is where Thanos truly shines. That Thanos is the Mad Titan who made himself a household name and a staple in almost every top 5 movie villains of all time list. Whether or not he is the greatest villain of all time is up for debate, but one thing is certain, No other comic book villain has ever left an impact quite like him. He wasn't just powerful, he was complex, philosophical, and, most terrifyingly, he won. Infinity War Thanos didn't just challenge the Avengers, he redefined what it meant to be a villain in modern cinema. And for that reason, he will be remembered as one of the greatest movie antagonists of all time. If you want to dive even deeper into the world of superheroes, check out our video on Deadpool's wildest ride from zero to hero, exploring how Deadpool went from a small-time villain to one of the greatest anti-heroes of the comic multiverse. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to Heroscope, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more deep dives into your favorite characters. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.